Kathleen, the art engineer, and you are watching a live interpretation of my podcast. So here we go. Uh, it's a new day, and if you haven't gone completely crazy by now, you've probably noticed it's a different world out there. It's like we're in one of those sitcoms where one person's having a conversation with another person and the other person's also having a conversation with the first person, but about something completely different, and hilarity and hijinks ensue. That's what I feel is happening right now between us and the planet, our government, the people still hanging out in the streets, and the damn spring breakers in Florida. Hijinks to ensue, guaranteed. But we move on in place, right? I still get up in the morning, get dressed, do my hair, put on my clothes, wear and lace up my Doc Martens, even though I won't go anywhere today. But the weight of the boots give me a sense of purpose. Walking from my studio to my kitchen to my bathroom feels like I'm doing something. And the boots themselves symbolize who I am, standing in place. They're a part of my creative and ritualistic garb that forms my artistic armor. Like Frida's flower crown or Kusama's wigs, the boots are also, they remind me of where I come from. Being a pretentious kid in high school, needing them to feel cool. And they remind me of my lifelong supporters. I can still see my grandmother handing me a wad full of wrinkled dollars behind my father's back to complete my outrageous purchase. Meanwhile, he was driving us to Melrose, of course. They tell me my own story to keep me going in this stillness. My boots, this object like the smell of your favorite perfume, your favorite dress, or pair of jeans, socks, these are the elements to your artist armor that will keep you sane. They will remind you of your purpose, especially if you have a paint smock that's splattered with different colors. I mean, now we know you mean business, right? If you keep a schedule and put this on, the day begins and ends with certain magic in between for sure. If you don't have any of this gear, if you never particularly like your shoes or your socks, come on, live a little, hon. Now is the time to incubate, to become that artist that makes food with art, or that writer who only writes in future tense about cats, all while wearing a bubble wrap suit or a furry nun's habit. Your choice. But why get dressed? Why show up now? Because right now, we're all a captive audience, looking for resonance. We're all in need of comfort and reassurance that this nightmare that's actually happening will turn out okay, that we'll get through this together. Because if I see you carrying on in your studio, I will too. We're finding resonance in memes and the stories we share and the games we play, and more important to artists like us, in the art we're making and sharing. I think this moment of crisis and quarantined isolation is a little less jarring for artists who are friends with solitude, or at least have a working relationship with it. Because really, it's the only way to make art. To disconnect, to connect, and create. I say connect because you connect to a higher power or a higher source, right? Whatever you want to call it. But that's where good art comes from. And that's amazing. But we can't stay there. Not in the solitude, even now during quarantine. Because everything we've been creating, harvesting, laboring over, is needed now. The world is forcibly going where we go to create, to ruminate, to make things. And guess what? People, non-artists, they need our help. They need our breadcrumbs to get through this, to get through the path that you and I have traveled all along. We have something to offer, and finally, the world, literally, the whole world needs it. It's asking for our insight, for levity, for humor, and for survival. But before we can offer, we must ask. The most successful artists are the ones that know how to ask. And beyond the ask, it's about knowing what we have to offer and finding ways to show people how to consume it. That is our ask. I've made something amazing with my hands, with my heart, and it's full of ideas, intention, imagination, and even magic. Take it. I made it for you. This is how you can get it and benefit from it. It's yours. Does that sound too simplistic? I've struggled with it all of my life. Lots of artists have. Because the context up to this very point has been all wrong, muddled by capitalism, sullied by marketing schemes. But not now. Now that these paradigms are crumbling, now that we're all in an emotionally leveled playing field, you can deliver what you've been harvesting, what we've been making in silence for this very moment. Right now, we realize we have everything we need in our pockets, literally in our pockets. Do you have WhatsApp or FaceTime and PayPal or Venmo? You have what it takes to deliver what you're offering, to thrive. Now, a lot of you might still be working from home, which is a blessing, right? Keep going. But some are stuck at home on furlough or simply laid off. If this is the case, it's time to reach out. Even if you have your job, connect with people. They want to know you're all right. We all have the opportunity to reach out. Here's the first thing you can do. Here's the first thing you should do or you must do. If you have a website, place a PayPal button at the top right corner and invite your community to buy you a virtual cup of coffee. Set the price for $5. Don't put donation. This is part of the ask, right? Don't just leave it open-ended. Set the price, stake your ask. This is a simple gesture for your active community where they can know where and how to engage and support you. This is a good start. It's humble, unpretentious, and starts dialogue. If you do this, send me a link to your website. I'll buy the first handful of artists a virtual cup of coffee. I'm not kidding. You can do the same for me. If you go to studioconfessions.com, on the top right-hand corner, there's a steaming mug and an invitation to support and engage with me and my work. There is often this cool factor like, oh, real artists don't do that. We take our hunger with our isolation, man. That was yesterday, friends. Let that distant, cool, starving artist facade fade away. Just like when we talk about New York, we often distinguish between before and after 9/11. Now everything has changed again. And from now on, it will be before and after Corona. Let's make it our job to create an unmistakable contrast between those eras. Now, let's make it about connecting and engaging, virtually for now. But this virus has shown how inarguably interconnected we are, how we each affect each other, and how we need each other's cooperation to get through. The New Age gurus are slowly having vindicated, and per usual, science is coming around to validate them. I mean, did you hear there are reports of dolphins in the Venice canals? Because our quarantine has resulted in minimal pollution. I mean, it's a Lisa Frank landscape. So now the whole world needs your offering, your art, your voice, your work. The cup of coffee is just the beginning, and it's not limited to artists. As a matter of fact, I just hired my brother, who's an Italian linguist, to teach my 10-year-old nephew the language. It's a win-win. And what better time to celebrate a language of a people who are going through so much? This is how I contextualize the new academic endeavor to my nephew. Quote, right now, we have to stay put until it's safe. Then, after that, the world is big and beautiful, and it's waiting for you. If you learn to speak Italian, it will make the world a little easier to enjoy. End quote. Then I told him that they invented pizza, and he was all about it. If you're an educator or just have a great voice and are blessed with the virtue of patience, you can be a storyteller. You can read kids' books via Skype or Zoom. Do you know how many parents would pay to have their kids entertained with something more humane than Netflix or Fortnite? This is our domain. We will create the new normal, the new era. One thing I'm doing, and I hope you can join me, is the Art Support Pledge, started by British artist Matthew Burrows. The idea is simple and quite inspired, with the aim to support our own personal artistic livelihood and that of artists in our community. To take the pledge, commit to posting images of your work that you're willing to sell for $200 or less. And each time your sales reach $1,000, you promise or pledge to buy the work of other artists at $200 or less. This is how we can show up for ourselves and each other. Usually, when we're asked to help or contribute, it's by way of donation for silent auctions or charity art sales that leave the artist out of the generosity loop. The Artist Support Pledge model is inclusive and holistic. As part of the Art Support Pledge, I'm making a series of small collages on the backboard of comic book packaging, which comes with a protective plastic cover, so it's ready to ship. Each collage is 7 inches by 10.5 inches. I'm pricing them at $75 plus $10 shipping. I've already sold one in the series. Go to Instagram at Art Engineer to pick one up. We'll get through this, and everything that's surfacing right now is what we have to pay attention to. Broken systems, fraudulent patriarchies, you know what I'm talking about. This is the moment to make changes. You have so much to offer, and maybe even more than you're presently aware. Sit still. Daydream. Night dream. Dream while you sleep. Just be still and stay home. Just for this moment. For this segment of time. Like I told my nephew, the world is big and beautiful, and it's waiting for you after this segment of isolation. Did you notice the cover for this episode on the iPod podcast? It's by the LA-based artist Esteban Carlos Benson. The work is titled March 6, 2020. It's also the album cover for their new piece of music recorded on March 6, 2020. The music is in the tradition of experimental and ambient music. You can hear it right now by going to the show notes and following the link. Thank you, Esteban, for sharing your art and offering it to us for this episode. If you want to share your offerings for future episodes, follow the show's Instagram page at StuCon Podcast. I'll be posting open calls periodically. Please stay safe in this ever-changing narrative and stay home. I'll be sharing some COVID-19 resources for artists in the show notes. Ciao, mi amici.